Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I can't get no satisfaction. I was born in a crossfire hurricane and I see a red door and I want to paint it black.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Jumpin' Jack Flash, which came out in 1986 from director Penny Marshall. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Terry Doolittle, played by Whoopi Goldberg. Terry is a computer programmer at the First National Bank in New York. While working on her computer, she starts to receive messages from a guy calling himself Jumpin' Jack Flash. As Terry starts to investigate this man's identity, she realizes he may be a British spy and she may have to help him to get out of a difficult situation.
I want me a Jack, bum, 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 bum. I want him come back. Bum, 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 bum.
This is a film that rarely comes up in conversation. As a matter of fact, when this popped up as a request, I was just like, really? Somebody else? As a matter of fact, you requesting it just reminded me that this film even exists. And it's a film that I discovered late night on BBC, just flipping through the channels.
Yeah.
Flipped over and it just came up on the screen saying, knock, knock. And there was Whoopi Goldberg. And I recognised Whoopi Goldberg from Ghost.
Yeah.
And of course, being a big fan of Star Trek The Next Generation, she was Guinan.
Yes.
So very fond of Whoopi Goldberg. And so I was like, okay, I like this actress. She's talking to a computer. Let's see where this goes. And, you know, it was one of those films, catching it at a young age, I was like, that was fine. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was what it is. But it was totally forgettable. And now we're going to revisit it and see if there was actually anything there.
See, I watched it the same as you late one night, BBC One, but, you know, I think it was my first introduction to Whoopi Goldberg, and then I watched The Colour Purple with her in, and I was just like, wow, those are two different ranges of the acting spectrum, shall we say. You know, I saw her go on into Ghost as well, absolutely brilliant in that. Like you said, Guinan in Star Trek The Next Generation. You know, I really liked her in Bogus as well with Gerard Depardieu. That's an obscure one for you.
I think I stopped watching Whoopi Goldberg movies when she did a film with a giant dinosaur at some point.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't do many adult-based movies anymore. No. But I think, personally, you know, she broke out doing her comedy stand-up, you know, but that wasn't really able to, I don't know, translate onto TV for adults. You know, like a lot of comedians do, they take their show onto the big screen, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, they're just as fun. Like Eddie Murphy, you know, he's another one. Whoopi Goldberg, though, she works better as like a kid's actor. You know, I know you're not a big fan of that dinosaur movie, but, you know, you give it to a 5-year-old and they're just like, oh my God, it's a fucking talking dinosaur, you know? But for me, you know, like I said, watching Jumpin' Jack Flash, I forgot how the story kind of shows you that Terry's life, you know, has gotten to a point where she doesn't actually say it in the movie, but it's like she's hit a roadblock. You know, she's seeking excitement. She hates the city. She hates her job. You know, she likes her work colleagues. But she's wanting more. You know, it's like one of her work colleagues, Cynthia, says to her, you know, you've always got your nose in one of those adventure books. You know, you're looking for that Mr. Right to come and sweep you off your feet. And Terry's like, no, I don't need a man. I can do all this myself.
But that seems like a lie.
Yes.
Because when you see her in her apartment, she's watching this romance film.
Yeah.
And she's spellbound by it. She's watching this guy sweep this lady off her feet. And she's longing for that to happen to her as well. Especially when her colleagues at work are talking about who they're dating and et cetera, et cetera. And so you get a sense that she is quite lonely.
Made love all weekend? God, I gotta meet this guy.
But you do also really grow to care for this character right from the beginning, especially when the camera's panning around her apartment during the intro.
Yeah.
And you see all those classic film posters as well. Yeah. And I was just like, you know, I already like this character now.
Yeah, well, she's a strong woman you can get behind. You know, she's not willing on taking any shit. I love the clashes she has with Mr. Page.
Right.
You know, the bank manager. You know, he's given her grief because she communicates with other banks around the world, and they transfer her money, and obviously she's supposed to obviously deal with it from her end. But they end up getting into, I don't know, the first Facebook internet messenger chats, you know, and it's on a personal level. These people are asking her how her life is, and, you know, she's giving them food recipes. But Mr. Page, the bank manager, he doesn't want her to do that. That's wrong.
She brings her own personality to her job, and you can tell just by her cubicle that she works at. She's got dinosaurs and toys all over the place.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else's cubicles are just that grey, boring office space looking, you know, cubicle area.
Yeah, but her work colleagues love her.
Yes.
You know, because of her eccentric personality, I suppose. I mean, we've got Cynthia, played by Carol Kane. I recognise her as the fairy from Scrooge.
It's that voice.
It's that voice. You know, it's the way she potters around as well.
Yeah.
You know, talking about all the guys she's trying to date.
I liked him very much, but you know, you have to set high goals for yourself. Let's face it, he was no ex-doctor.
You've got John Lovitch playing Dougie, you know. You've also got Phil Hartman playing Fred, and they all rally round her as well, because her computer starts to pick up Russian exercise videos. It's like, how is that even possible, you know?
I have no idea.
But it's that I picked up this time. I mean, I've seen this film, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and it was only this time that's what I picked up is the reason that she's starting to get these messages from Jack, because they realize that there's a Soviet satellite out there which is tuned into her screen. And so Jumping Jack Flash, who is in an unnamed Eastern Bloc country, is using that satellite to communicate with somebody so that he can try and find an escape route, because he needs to get out of the country.
Clam shelter. Can't say anymore. This channel unsecure.
I like the setup where, you know, she asks who he is, and he's like, I'm Jumping Jack Flash. And she's like, oh, it's a gas.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I got the Rolling Stones reference. You know, the film's named after
Yeah.
Rolling Stones song. And he's like, well, you need to guess the password.
The code key, yeah.
The code key. And he tells her to sing it for him. And she goes home, she's trying to figure it out. And this actually has one of my favourite sequences in the film, where she's listening to the Rolling Stones for quite a while, and she's trying to decipher what the lyrics are.
Yeah, from just listening to it, and you're like, I've tried listening to that song a billion times. I had to wiki the shit out of that song.
But it's alright now. Damn, Nick, this is the only thing anybody can sing.
And so eventually she gets a music book, and she's looking for it to get the lyrics, but then she notices that it's in B flat.
Yes.
And when she gets to the computer, that's eventually the key code.
Whoa! Get it! Terry!
Yeah, and she starts to communicate with Jack, and he starts to explain to her that, you know, he's looking for this escape route because the dogs are barking and he has no umbrella to fly. And she has to take that to the British consulate to, was it Department C?
Yeah.
You know, and she has to give this information so that they can try and get him an escape route. And she goes there and she comes across Talbot. Now, he's evil looking.
He's a British guy in a suit.
Yeah. But he just looks so sneery as well. It's the way he just looks down on people like, oh, what are you doing here? We have no departments here. I'm like, all right, we've seen enough James Bond films to know that you've got to lie your way out of this.
Exactly. Now, this film is a parody of those sort of spy espionage films, and it's goofy in its attempts.
It's not a parody.
It really is. It's the sequence when she goes up to Talbot and she hides behind a plant, and she waves the plant in front of her and delivers the message.
Yeah, but she's not being... it's not a parody. She is thinking this is how spies do it, because that's, like you said, all she's seen are these black and white movies, you know, and I mean, she got that big poster.
She might as well just
Casablanca
have the
behind her.
newspaper with some eye holes cut out of it.
But she even makes that joke, doesn't she? Oh, I've got to go to the British consulate. Should I get a trench coat and sunglasses, you know, to just stand there? And Talbot basically says to her, like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And she thinks it's all a joke. So she goes back and she waits until everybody's gone home at her computer. And she has that great bit with Mr. Page where he's like, why are you still here? And she starts begging him, I need that promotion. I need it. And he's like, get off me. Okay, get off me. And she goes to her computer and she says, Jack, they didn't believe me. This is all a joke. And you could tell that Jack's now a little bit worried because, well, somebody should be there to help him. And, well, most of the time these secret agents just end up getting shot and chucked in a river at some point.
Yeah.
Now, it's at this point as well that one of her colleagues has gone off on maternity leave, and we get introduced to Marty, played by Stephen Collins. Stephen Collins played Decker from the Star Trek motion picture.
Yeah.
It's the only film that I recognise him from. But, you know, it's always... I always thought this the first time I saw it, and subsequent viewings, that it's just very coincidental that he turns up just as all this stuff is happening. And he's always there in the background trying to help Terry. So you know that out of pretty much everybody in the film, he's kind of the guy that you can kind of trust because he's very naive.
Well,
and very
it's
innocent.
either you could trust him, or it's the fact that he is a plant and he is another one of those agents that are there to keep an eye on her or bring her in.
Yeah.
Because when she leaves the consulate, you see that there is a photographer taking pictures of her,
Yes.
so we know that something is definitely up.
Yeah, and she starts to pick this up. You know, Talbot is suspicious of her, even though she hasn't given him all the information that he wants. And she's suspicious as well of why people are following her and why she's getting drawn into this espionage world.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird that that's kind of what she wanted, but it's not like what she imagined.
Well, she keeps arguing that she doesn't want nothing to do with it. She doesn't want to be involved in this, yet she keeps putting herself in the middle of this because she kind of falls in love with the text on the computer monitor.
Yes.
She's kind of fantasizing about who this British spy is that she's fallen for. And so she goes to his apartment to try and track down a frying pan. And when she brings it home and cleans the back of it, she realizes that there's names and numbers on the back.
Yeah, but you just get one of the coolest parts because she gets a taxi to the apartment, gets the frying pan, realizes she's been followed there because somebody's left that creepy picture on the door. And when she gets back into the taxi, Jim Belushi is there. Now, Jim Belushi had already turned up trying to be the repairman for her computer and then disappeared. And now he's in the taxi with this gun and she fucking whacks him around the head with that frying pan and crashes. But it's at this point as well, she hears Jack's voice on his answering machine, and he's played by Jonathan Pryce, a well-known British actor. I mean, he's the main badass from Brazil, but I could never get past him being the evil guy from Tomorrow Never Dies.
I just remember him as the Sparrow from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but you know, it's like you then every time they talk, you're just hearing his voiceover.
Yeah, it gets to a point. It made me laugh when she's at the computer and she's looking at something else, but she's talking with him.
Yeah.
And because the film has now edited his voice onto the computer as the text is coming up, she almost doesn't need to look at the text.
Yeah.
Because she's hearing his voice.
She's just communicating him, and then you're like, is she writing that? Is he hearing that? What the hell's going on? But she gets all the information from the back of the frying pan of all these different contacts that Jack's after, and one of the contacts, Mark Van Meter, contacts her and tells her to meet him at the docks. And when they meet at the docks, she gives the information to him, what Jack's said to her. And Van Meter, played by Jeronian Crabbe, who's the famous... I want to say British, but Jeronian Crabbe doesn't seem like a British name.
No.
You know, I didn't look up exactly where he's from, but he's a great actor anyway. And he explains to Terry that there's moles inside the British consulate who are trying to get their agents killed. And they start having to run away because somebody's chasing them at the docks. And it's the way that Terry is still talking to him and then realizing they're moving really, really fast. And like, well, do we have to move this fast, Mr. Van Meter? Why are we moving this fast? And he just throws her into the docks.
I mean, you seem to be moving awfully quickly, Mr. Van Meter. Are you trying to catch a plane, Mr. Van Meter? Mr. Van Meter!
Turns around to kill the guy that's chasing them and is shot himself and ends up in the river.
Mr. Van Meter? Mr. Van Meter?
Terry ends up getting taken to the police station, screaming at the police officer that there's a dead body in the river, and he just doesn't buy it.
I'm just like, there's probably a lot of bodies in that river.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. But it's the way that the cop says, do you want to spend the night in the cells? And she's like, do you want me to kick you in the balls so hard they go up into your neck?
No, into your nostrils.
Into your nostrils. And he kind of grabs his nose like, oh, that's a vivid image.
How would you like me to wash your mouth out with a wire brush?
How'd you like if I kick you in the nuts so hard that they get lodged in your fucking nostrils?
So, now the thing is that there's like 4 names attached to the screenplay for this film, and this film did go through several rewrites.
Yes.
It was still, I would believe, still being rewritten as they were filming it. And, you know, there's different versions, some with lots of profanity and some without. You know, and up until this point of the film, I was like, this is kind of like a PG family movie.
Yeah.
Until this outburst of Tourette's, as they call it in the film. That's probably my first introduction to Tourette's as well. I think I used it as an excuse to just swear. Yeah. And I was like, wow, there's lots of vulgar language just flying out of the screen at this point.
Wow, it's New York, mate. That's how they talk. Well, that's how I'm led to believe they talk. But I thought that as well, because I was looking at the notes and it said about all the rewrites. And I was thinking to myself, I can see through the film that there's a lot of inconsistencies, a couple of plot holes, and things just seem to just go awry because of the rewrites. But compared to, say, a lot of other films that we've reviewed that have had or have gone through lots of rewrites, this is probably the most well structured. Yeah, I bring up Split Second, you know, that we have reviewed. That one was all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
At least this one had like a coherent storyline of her trying to rescue Jack. You know.
It's at this point, it's this midsection of the film where I get really bored. You know, I actually checked to see how much of the film was left because I just wanted it to wrap up now. It's just her going off and finding all these different people and trying to figure out what's happened to Jack and who she can trust. It's just like it's boring. Like, it's played out better in actual spy movies.
Yeah.
And the comedy here, Whoopi is great. You know, she's playing herself in a way.
Pretty much, yeah.
And she's funny, but after a while, the situations she's put in are just farcical, or just...
Yeah, I felt the same when she ends up going to the British consulate because Jack explains to her that he needs more contacts because all the people on the list are either dead or missing, and so she has to break into the British consulate, attach this thing to their high-tech computer so that he can hack into it from his end and get more contacts to escape. But it's like Whoopi Goldberg's good as a comedian and she can talk her way out of any situation, but action scenes, they're not really working well. I mean, she walks in with that wig and that blue dress on, and the lady says to her, like, well, you haven't got an invite. I can't let you in. And she's like, I'm this tonight's entertainment. And she starts singing in the lobby. And I'm like, there's not one security guard in this place that's trying to stop her from getting in. Luckily, she meets up with Elizabeth, played by Annie Potts, who is the wife of one of the agents that Jack's trying to contact. And Elizabeth starts to say to Terry, look, I will help you any way I can. I'll distract people. She distracts Talbot at one point, who tries to stop Terry. And Terry makes her way up to, like, I don't know, the 3rd or 4th floor, realizes she can't get past the security guards, so then climbs onto the roof, lowers herself down into the computer room. And I'm like, this is completely implausible. It looks fun and actiony, and okay, I love the Whoopi Goldberg lines like, what the fuck am I doing up here, and this is absolutely stupid. But then getting her into the room, accessing the computer, you know, those 2 security guards are sat there watching Benny Hill. I mean, how inept can you make British people look that they're watching Benny Hill? And one of them goes into the room to sort out the computer, and because it's not working, he goes to look under the desk, but it comes back on just in time so Terry's not caught, only for her to get her dress caught in the shredder. Like, she is screaming at this fucking thing to let her go, and these two guards are not even
They don't even check.
They don't even hear it. And she gets back to her apartment, and the whole place has been trashed. And now she looks worried. I'm like, now you look worried? Oh, okay, Terry. Okay.
So she fires up the computer again at work, and she's like, well, we're connected. Can you find your escape person?
Yeah.
And he starts hacking into it, but then Talbot at the British consulate realizes what's happening and terminates the transmission.
Yeah.
So now Jumpin' Jack Flash is stuck.
Yeah. And he is telling Terry that she doesn't need to be involved anymore. He's realized that she's a woman. And it's just like, no, it's too dangerous. And I love the way she just fucking batters him down. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Just because I'm a woman, I can't do half this shit. I'm doing actually better than what you are. But she starts getting herself into real bad situations. I mean, she comes across a guy called Lincoln, who explains to her that, in the espionage games, the agents are just pawns. And these are they're just there to get killed off. But she, like you said, she's fallen in love with Jack, and she wants to do everything she can because she just can't leave it. Elizabeth at this point has ended up disappearing. Or
she got sent away after her husband's body had turned up. There was a funeral for him, and then she got sent away under protection or another assignment, essentially.
And all the information is being flooded back to other agents that it was Jack who had Elizabeth's husband killed, so they don't want to have any contact with him. But obviously, as the audience, we know it's actually Talbot. Terry goes to work and wants to use the phone to try and contact somebody else. And Mr. Page is like, no, you can't use a work phone. You're trying to contact your mother again, who's been in hospital because last week she was hit by a bus and this week she's got fucking frog disease or something. And he doesn't believe her. So she has to use a phone out in the city. And while she's there, Jim Belushi turns up again with a neck brace and injects her with a truth serum. But that's after she's been dragged through the city by another agent who's hooked her phone booth up to a pickup truck.
Yeah. It's funny watching her being dragged around the streets of New York.
Yeah. We were trying to clean her screens and asking her for money.
Yeah. See, those are some funny moments, but at the same time, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it just seems really unrealistic.
Is she actually still talking on the phone? Is the phone still working?
She is still talking on the phone, but I don't think anybody's actually on that line. She's just doing her comedy routine talking. But Jim Belushi injects her with this truth serum and she manages to escape, and she's now acting drugged all the way
She's
through.
now telling the truth to everyone she passes by.
Yeah.
And she's on her way back to go and meet with this other British lady.
Yeah, Lady Sarah, who can get more information.
Who used to date Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Yeah.
And she goes in there and under the effect of the truth serum just lays it out to her that she's a terrible person if she doesn't help her old flame, Jack.
Yeah.
And she leaves. And eventually in her apartment, she turns up.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, you know what, you convinced me. Here's an escape route for Jack. We're done.
Yeah. But it's all a setup. Because the person who would have given the information to Lady Sarah would have been Talbot. And he ends up kidnapping Terry, which I thought was a great sequence, where she's walking down the street and those three guys start coming up to her and they're talking about how they want to do all these nasty things to her and they're all horrible looking.
Oh, hey, you don't want me?
You knew I had a high school diploma.
I got diseases. I got shit that'll make your dick fall off.
And as she walks past them, the agents come out of a car. And she's like, actually, I'd rather be with the rapist. Yeah, we're going to have lots of sex and do loads of drugs and all this. And they're like, whoa, yeah. And then they see the secret agents. They're like, actually, lady, we don't want any. We're out. We're gone.
So that's a drug. Get down and...
I think I got it. What business of what?
And she gets tranquilized and taken to the British consulate by Talbot and these guards. And they are trying to convince her to give them the information that she's passed on to Jack because she's lying. about actually giving him the details that are going to set him up for being killed. And it's a stupid torture sequence. I mean, they get that. I couldn't understand why the British consulate has so many mannequins in the background.
Right.
Because they get these mannequin arms and they start chopping off the fingers to show her that that's what they're going to do to her. And she escapes by using one of the agent's guns. And Talbot's like, oh, we'll use the back stairs. She'll have to go out the consulate front door. And I'm like, why have you got mannequins in the consulate for?
How are they so inept at keeping this woman contained?
I don't know,
It does get to a funny line when she leaves and she's not wearing the wig anymore, and the receptionist at first was like, I recognize you. She's like, no, you don't recognize me. And then when she turns up, she's like, you're the terrorist, I recognize you. It was like, what?
I've been trained in hostage situations. It's like, oh my God, you're making British people look so stupid. But Terry has to race back to the bank to use her computer to deliver the real information to Jack. But while under the effects of the truth serum, she had ripped off Mr. Page's wig and basically acted so badly that she was fired. So she races back into the bank. And I've got to bring this up now because I forgot to do this. The fat security guard, or Larry, the overweight guard that they call him through the film, is played by a guy called Chino Fats Williams. Now, I didn't think he was much of a star in this movie, so I wouldn't want to put him down. But it's the fact that he's the garbage man from the Terminator.
That's awesome.
But Terry runs up to her computer and she starts trying to use the terminal to deliver the real information to Jack. And then it just turns into this big fucking shooting spree because Talbot comes in with his guards and they're fighting over the computer and
she forces him into the chair that was set up for the pregnant lady, so he falls over.
Why the fuck did he need to sit down? And then Carl gets his Uzi out and just plays. Carl's a trained agent, I understand. He's a undercover KGB guy who must have gone through years of training. But with an Uzi in his hand, he's shooting all over the fucking place. He's shooting computers. He's shooting clocks. I'm like, that guy needs to be fired.
Well, he seemed fired. He's fired upon.
Because it's at this point we're revealed that Marty is armed and dangerous, and he actually works with the CIA. And
never saw that coming.
Yeah. And he was planted there I can only understand he was planted there by Lincoln.
Yeah.
And he ends up taking out Carl, and they actually give the right information to Jack, and Jack's life is saved. But Jack and Terry had said that when Jack gets back to America, he'd love to take Terry out for dinner. And it's quite a twist ending because she goes to the restaurant to meet up.
The thing is, the film should just end here, but it doesn't. It just keeps going.
Yeah, but I suppose it's not supposed to, because they built up this loving relationship all the way through.
No, they haven't. It's a creepy thing where it's a very one-sided loving relationship where she's longing for him to be this dream guy.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't know what he's thinking. He's never led her on in any way.
No, but in any situation, when
he owes her a life.
Yeah, when somebody saves your life, you have a connection with them, don't you? You know, I mean, okay, I've always believed that at the end of this film, they actually don't actually have a sexual relationship. No. I think they end. For me personally, I've always believed that after the restaurant sequence, she gets stood up because he's in London. Jack's in London talking to the Queen, and the Queen's really happy that he's been saved. And then she returns to work. She's got her promotion. She's loved by all of her crew. Even Mr. Page is a bit more respectful to her because of everything that she's been doing. And she starts talking to Jack over the computer again. And it turns out Jack is there.
And how is he talking on the computer?
Because he's using a terminal. I mean, fucking hell, dude. He's a computer
whiz. He's right behind her.
Yeah, I know. He said he was like 2 rows back. And he shouldn't do that with your glasses. And, you know, it's kind of like the old noir black and white agent movies like Casablanca, where, you know, she's now the hero and he's happy for her. He's the damsel in distress and he's going to take her out for lunch. But you know, she's so independent and he's a fucking secret agent that no real relationship's really going to pan out from that, because his life's always going to be in danger and she's not going to be happy with that. So when they walk off at the end, I'm like, they go off for lunch and maybe she ends up being his contact in America and she actually gets a job for the FBI, but the sexual stuff just falls out the window.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantasy kind of ending anyway. I mean, the whole film is.
Yeah.
So, favourite sequences from the movie, you know, I really like the sequence when she's listening to the Stones and trying to figure out the lyrics. I like the sequence which is in the telephone being dragged off. And I like some of the sequences where she sat on her own talking to this computer terminal, discovering what's going on. Yeah. It's once all the pieces are in place and then you've just got to watch them all play out that it stops being very memorable.
Yeah, I mean, it's... The film's not as impactful as it was the first time I watched it, and I was really worried. Like I said, I was really worried that the film would get really boring towards the end. But like Gary, her singing Jumpin' Jack Flash and just dancing in her apartment, just being Whoopi Goldberg, just being funny, that stuff's really, really good.
I was drowned in a book back to the head.
I loved it when Cynthia was flirting with Marty when he first turns up, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Cynthia. I'm kind of the office slut, you know. Oh, you're playing with my hair." And he puts that picture on his computer, and she goes, "Oh, I see you've got your own family." Shit. I'm like,
Oh, so you already have a little family. Well, shit.
I did like Terry's dress caught in the shredder. I mean, it's like I said, it's the comedy element. I'm not a big fan of the actiony stuff, but it's just, that stuff was just kind of funny, just watching her fight with this shredder. When she meets Earl, the security guard, when she goes to meet Lady Sarah and the security guard stops her and she just looks at him and she goes, "Man, I am a woman on the edge and you've got to ask yourself, is this job worth it or do you want to leave?" And he just goes, "I quit," and he runs off.
Yeah, I did like the fact that he says, "Yeah, I've seen that look before on my wife."
Yeah, I've seen that look before, yeah I've seen that. And my final favourite scene, I totally forgot about this bit, was when Terry and Talbot are fighting at the end over the computer, and he's got her on her knees, and he's just like, "What are you going to do?" And she bites him right on the dick, and his face completely shows like, "Oh." It's like, yeah, that man has not had a woman on his dick for a long time.
I'll cancel something even better.
So, when it comes down to recommending the film, I'm going to have to say no. It's an average film, personally, and I only found some of the humour actually worked. It's overly slow, it's long-winded, and it's actually irritating in places. Whoopi Goldberg, though, is amazing, and she's really fun to watch. There's a really good supporting cast. The film is watchable, it's just not that exciting or memorable, and I don't think I'll ever watch it again. And so on that grounds, I can't really recommend Jumpin' Jack Flash unless you like Whoopi Goldberg and you like looking at 1985 kind of office space environments with the low-tech computers and things. But this film's a dud. Avoid it.
See, now this guy's dead inside, so, you know, he's not got no taste. I do recommend Jumpin' Jack Flash, simply because Whoopi Goldberg is a great actress. You know, she's had a lot of hits, she's had a lot of misses, and there's a lot of actors and actresses out there who we could say the same for. I mean, this film is better than some films that have come out in the cinema nowadays. You know, yes, it is dated. We are talking 1986. And so, nostalgically for me, I remember watching it young. I remember kind of growing up in that time as well. You know, I remember just how Whoopi Goldberg makes me feel when I sit down and watch a film. You know, I love, like I said, I love most of her films. The Color Purple, Bogus, fucking... She's just able to do a lot with what they give her. Now, the film did suffer a lot of rewrites, and a lot of the action sequences don't work for her. You know, they could have done some changes in the film, but for me it's a rare classic. It's fun in some places, and if you get all the way through it, you'll probably never ever watch it again. But at least you've watched it.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
It's an illness. People can't stop swearing. They don't even know they're doing it. She has it bad. She usually spits. Really, this is sweet talk for her.
Son of a bitch!
It's Tourette syndrome. It's an
Look up
illness.
Tourette syndrome.